When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't a smile of happiness. It was quiet, resigned, a little sad, but gentle. I had spent my entire life caring for this family, washing clothes, cooking meals, mending clothes, helping my grandchildren with their homework. I had believed that love and loyalty would be enough, that they would see me as part of their lives forever. But that day, I realized something I had never imagined. Sometimes love alone isn't enough to hold a family together. The morning had started like any other. The sun was just rising, painting the walls of my small bedroom with soft light. I went about making breakfast, humming a tune I had learned as a young girl. My son was at work, the children were still asleep, and she, my daughter-in-law, was sitting at the dining table, her expression calm but firm. She looked at me, and without hesitation, she said, "It's time for you to go. We don't need you here anymore." I felt my heart tighten. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind, but I didn't say a word. Instead, I offered her a soft smile. It wasn't for her, it was for myself. I needed to hold on to some dignity, some sense of self-respect. Because if I cried, if I begged, I feared I would crumble entirely. I remember standing there in silence, listening to the quiet tick of the clock, the sound of the kettle boiling, the faint chirping of birds outside the window. Life seemed to move on, indifferent to the storm inside my heart. That's when I realized the depth of what had happened. The people I had trusted the most, the ones I had devoted my life to, were turning away from me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I was born in a small village where everyone knew each other. Life was simple. My parents were kind but strict. They taught me the value of hard work and respect. From a young age, I learned to care for others before myself. It became a part of who I was. I married young to a gentle man who loved me quietly. Together, we built a life. Not perfect, but full of care and warmth. When my son was born, I poured all my love into him. I wanted him to grow up feeling safe, loved, and cherished. And as he grew, I became part of his life in every possible way. I taught him how to read, tie his shoes, be kind to others. I watched him win small victories at school, celebrated birthdays, and soothed his tears when life felt too hard. I was proud, deeply proud of the person he was becoming. Over the years, life continued. My husband passed away quietly, leaving me with memories and a son I adored. I moved in with him and his young family, thinking I could help, support, and continue being part of their lives. At first, it was good. My grandchildren were happy to see me. They laughed, played, and called me grandma with joy. I felt useful, needed, loved. But life has a way of changing quietly. The days I spent in the kitchen, the hours I dedicated to helping around the house, slowly began to feel unnoticed. My son, busy with work and life, didn't see the small sacrifices I made. My daughter-in-law, once friendly, started giving subtle signals. Sighs, rolled eyes, quiet complaints. I tried to ignore them, telling myself it was just stress or a phase. Small moments of discomfort piled up. A forgotten smile here, a curt remark there. My presence, once welcomed, started to feel intrusive. Yet I stayed, believing family ties were stronger than fleeting irritation. I reminded myself, patience, love, understanding, these are the glue that hold a family together. Every evening, I would sit in the living room, watching them interact, listening to laughter and conversations I sometimes felt excluded from. I knew I was no longer part of their private world, yet I held on. Quietly, hoping one day they would see me as more than a guest, more than someone in the background. I wanted to belong. I wanted to be loved. It started with small things. My cup of tea left in the wrong place, a comment about the way I folded laundry, a glance, sharp and dismissive, from my daughter-in-law. I tried not to notice. Perhaps I'm being too sensitive, I told myself. Perhaps she's just stressed. But the small things kept piling up. One morning, I woke early to make breakfast. Fresh bread, brewed coffee, set the table neatly. My daughter-in-law entered, looked at the spread, and said, almost casually, "Why do you do all this? We can manage on our own." I smiled softly, hiding the sting in my heart. "I like to help," I replied gently. She shrugged and walked away, leaving me standing there with warmth and effort ignored. The children were my solace. I spent time with them, read stories, helped with homework, but even they began to mirror the tension. One afternoon, my granddaughter looked up at me, a little unsure, and said, "Grandma, maybe you should go rest." Her words, innocent as they were, cut deeper than anything my daughter-in-law could say. I nodded, not letting her see the hurt in my eyes. I tried to talk to my son. "I feel a little out of place lately," I said softly, hoping for reassurance. He looked tired, distracted. "Mom, we all love you, but we have a lot going on," he replied. I nodded. I understood, but understanding did not ease the ache inside me. Small gatherings at home became tense. I sat quietly at the dining table, pretending to read, while laughter and conversation swirled around me. I felt invisible, not because I wasn't present, but because my presence was no longer wanted. Nights became restless. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments, analyzing every word, every glance. Then, one rainy afternoon, the tension came to a head. I was quietly folding clothes when my daughter-in-law entered, her expression cold. "Mom, I think it's best if you find your own place. We can't have you here anymore." The words fell like heavy stones. I wanted to cry, scream, beg, but instead, I offered a quiet, resigned smile. "I understand," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. The children watched, confused. My son, unsure, said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Slowly, I gathered myself and walked to my room. The sound of the door closing behind me echoed like a final goodbye. The days that followed were harder. I stayed mostly in my room. The warmth of shared meals, laughter, family life was gone. The house felt larger, colder, emptier. I watched from the shadows as my son tried to maintain peace, as my daughter-in-law orchestrated the daily routine without me. Every smile I offered was met with polite acknowledgement at best, or indifference at worst. Letters, notes, small gestures of affection I once exchanged with my grandchildren began to fade. I felt like a ghost in my own home. And yet, in quiet moments, I remembered the early years, laughter of babies, excitement of birthdays, joy of family gatherings. Those memories became my refuge. They reminded me that love had existed here, and it still lived somewhere, buried beneath the hurt and rejection. It was a Sunday morning. I had woken early, as usual, and was sitting by the window, watching the rain drizzle over the garden. The scent of wet earth filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of tea I had brewed. I felt a quiet sadness, knowing that the family I had devoted myself to was slowly drifting away. My son entered, carrying a cup of tea. He hesitated, then sat across from me. "Mom," he said softly, "I don't want this to continue. I see what's happening and I don't like it." His voice trembled, betraying worry and regret. I looked at him, my heart a mix of sorrow and relief. "I don't want conflict, my dear," I replied. "I just want peace for everyone." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. That afternoon, my daughter-in-law returned from work. She looked at me with a mix of anger and guilt. "Mom, I didn't realize." I simply nodded, offering a faint smile. The tension hung in the air, fragile like a thread stretched too thin. Misunderstandings, fear, pride, all had played their parts. Then came the moment of revelation. My son handed me a letter he had found among my husband's old things. It was addressed to me, written years ago, full of love, encouragement, and gratitude. As I read it, tears streamed down my face. The words reminded me of the bond that had existed, the foundation of love I had built. I was not forgotten. I was not unwanted. I was cherished, if not in the present, then in memory. The children, sensing the shift, approached cautiously. My granddaughter took my hand and whispered, "Grandma, we missed you." My grandson nodded, tears in his eyes. The warmth of their small hands, their innocence, brought a flicker of hope. I realized rejection is often temporary, misunderstanding is a shadow, and love, real, enduring love, finds a way to shine through. We spent the evening talking, sharing memories, slowly rebuilding the strained bridge. My daughter-in-law apologized, not just in words, but in small gestures. My son held my hand, and I felt the weight in my chest ease. It wasn't perfect, the hurt hadn't vanished, but that day marked a turning point where understanding began, empathy replaced indifference, love quietly reclaimed its place. The weeks that followed were filled with small, meaningful moments. I learned to forgive, not just them, but myself, for expecting perfection, for holding on too tightly, for feeling hurt deeply. Life is fragile, relationships delicate, and understanding, seeing another's heart, is a gift we often overlook. I began to join family activities again, slowly, cautiously. We cooked together, shared tea, talked about old memories. I listened more than I spoke, letting silence carry lessons of patience and humility. The children laughed freely, and warmth returned to my chest. It was not the same as before, but it was real, authentic, precious. One evening, as we sat around the dining table, my daughter-in-law smiled at me. "Mom, thank you for staying, for giving us time, for understanding us," she said softly. My heart swelled. Words like these, gentle and sincere, can heal 1,000 quiet sorrows. I nodded, tears threatening, and whispered, "Thank you for letting me be part of your lives again." I realized family is not always about constant happiness. Sometimes it's about endurance, about standing together even when hearts are heavy, about forgiving and being forgiven. Love is not only presence, but patience, understanding, courage to keep trying. I started small rituals with the children, breakfast on Sundays, bedtime stories, baking cookies. These simple moments brought joy. They reminded me that life's beauty often lies in small, heartfelt gestures that show care without demanding recognition. My daughter-in-law's relationship evolved. We found common ground, mutual respect, understanding, no longer coldness or avoidance, dialogue, empathy, shared responsibility. I understood her struggles, her fears. She understood mine, and the bridge between us grew stronger. My son expressed gratitude often. "Mom, thank you for teaching me patience, for showing me love even when it was hard." Simple words, sincere, reminded me why I had endured the hurt, for the family I loved, for the connections that mattered most. Life continued, imperfect and unpredictable, but quiet moments of love, small gestures, return of smiles and laughter reminded me, even after rejection, hearts can reconnect. Even after tears, warmth can return. Even after turning backs, love finds its way home. Now, when I look back, I don't remember the pain as sharply. I remember the lessons, strength and patience, power of forgiveness, quiet resilience of love. My family, though flawed, is still my family. We are learning, growing, rebuilding together. I often sit by the window, watch the rain, think about the journey we shared. I think about mornings of silence, afternoons of tension, evenings of quiet tears, and I smile softly because love endured, even when it seemed lost. Sometimes I catch my grandchildren looking at me with curiosity and affection. They don't remember tension, they only remember love and care. And I am grateful. Grateful that hearts can heal, that bonds can be mended, that family can find its way back to warmth. The day my family turned their backs on me was painful, yes, but it taught me the depth of my own strength, the patience of my heart, and the enduring nature of love. Life is not perfect, families are not perfect, but in quiet moments, gentle understanding, sincere words, and small gestures, we find what truly matters. So, if you ever feel unseen, unheard, or rejected, remember this: love can return, patience can heal, forgiveness can rebuild, and sometimes quiet strength, standing tall with dignity in heart, is enough to bring hearts back together. Life is full of lessons, but the greatest is this: family, in its purest form, is not about perfection. It is about enduring, forgiving, and loving, even when the world feels cold and distant. And that, above all, is worth everything.